Hey everybody! Today I'm going to be talking about the trilogy Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. I really enjoyed reading this series. When I first saw the trailer for the movie Crazy Rich Asians, I thought that seems like something I would really want to see. And then when I realized that it was a book first, I thought, okay, I probably would love to read it too then. And so I saw it in the store, picked it up, I read the prologue, and decided that, yeah, I would totally be into this book. I don't like spoilers in any sense of the word. So even if it's just a little one, like things that could be said on the back of books, I don't even read the back cover at all. I might read the first sentence, but then I'm like, nope, I don't want to know anymore. I want it to all be fresh. So that's why I usually will open it up and read the first little part of it, and if it captures me enough, then I will read that book. So I picked this one up, started reading it, and just really enjoyed it. So I'm going to talk about all three of them because I just barely finished the third book a couple weeks ago. So in this, we'll just start with the first one. So in the first one, you are introduced to some of the main characters. Now there are a lot of main characters, okay? So at the beginning of this book, there is actually a family tree. And in the family tree, it explains the main characters, and I don't know if you can really see it, but here it is. So this side the Youngs, this side the Shangs, and it just goes through all the people that are super important to know. The main ones for this book that are focused on the most are Rachel Chu and Nick Young. So Nick Young is the one that comes from the Young family that is very wealthy and lives in Singapore. However, Nick has been living in New York because he works there. And he met Rachel there as well because she's also a teacher. And so when they met, they hit it off really well, and they'd been dating for a while, and Nick decided that he wanted to go visit Singapore. Well, he decided that he wanted to bring Rachel. He already knew he was going to go back because his best friend was getting married, and he thought this would be a great opportunity for Rachel to meet my family. And so since they're teachers and it's during the summer, they're like, let's just go for the whole summer vacation, let's go. And so Rachel agrees to it, but the thing about it is she knows nothing about his family. He's been very kind of private, not necessarily like private, but just didn't say any of the details of the fact that they are very wealthy because Nick doesn't really live that way. He kind of separated himself a little bit from that. He doesn't want to come across, as like snobbish and like, just that kind of rich behavior, I guess. He's not like that, and so you would never expect something like that. So, I don't want to give anything really away at all, so I'll just say they go over there and stuff happens. Lots of stuff happens, and basically you go through different chapters that are based on different characters, and Rachel and Nick are really important, and then Eleanor Young is Nick's mom, and she's the one that creates a lot of this drama as well as her friends, a lot of stuff that goes on over there when she meets Rachel. And then there's also Astrid, who is the cousin to Nick, and she personally is one of my favorite characters, probably my favorite character. She just is really classy, fashionable, private. She is private. She actually doesn't want to be in magazines, things like that. Like, she's been kept very sheltered, I guess you could say. She still lives her life, but she doesn't, when she's out in public, she doesn't do it for the fame. She's just down to earth, I guess you could say. I just really like her. She's a great character. So definitely one of my favorites, and she's a big part of this book. So this first book, I'm not going to give it any stars because I don't like using stars as ratings. It doesn't explain things well for me, I feel. But really highly enjoy. If you enjoy soap operas, if you find them entertaining, if you like Chinese culture, then you'll probably like this a lot because that's basically what it is. There's a ton of characters like a soap opera. There's drama, there's comedy in it, there's the romance aspects with Rachel and Nick being together for so long, and the wedding, that's Nick's friend's wedding, and so yeah, so I really definitely recommend it. So the author did such a good job with writing it. I really like the way that he writes the characters. He does a really good job with how he explains the characters and how he goes through their backstory. And this book, I mean, it's like over 500 pages, and so are all of them. I'm pretty sure they're all really thick, right? So he has enough time to really go into detail with even the characters that are like secondary characters. You still get a lot from that. You still get a lot of their stories, and I really like that. That's why I like Astrid so much, is that she doesn't seem like, you know, if you've seen the preview for the movie, I don't even know if it really shows Astrid in it. Like, I mean, it's mostly focused on Nick and Rachel, and Rachel's friend. But she's an important character, and she's in all three of the books, and she's developed really well, and that's why I really like her. How her character went through, like, developed and evolved, I guess. But another thing that I really like about the way he writes is that he will have sometimes at the bottom of the page, like this page has like this huge section here of explaining, like footnotes of explaining Chinese or Mandarin or whatever the language is that's being spoken at the time. If there's like a slang word or just a regular, if it goes into Chinese at any time, he'll explain it. But he won't just say this word equals this word in English. Like, he'll actually explain why it's used normally when people say it, what they mean. Like, he really goes into like explaining it so that you can get the idea of why people say that word or what it is and why people like that. Like, if it's a food, he'll explain why it's good, or he'll even throw in his own like personal opinions sometimes too into the footnotes, and I like that. I just like hearing, I just like reading what he has to say about those words. But I will say, since it is a longer book and there are those kinds of situations, he's not going to mention it again if he's already explained it. So if you don't want to be confused later on, make sure, I wish I had done this, but make sure you write down what they mean somewhere so you can like have a quick reference, or write the page number of where that first was seen, so that if you're like me and you forget what it means, you can go back to your list, go to the page, remind yourself what that is. I wish I had done that so that I wouldn't have felt like I had to keep going back if I forgot, and it just would have been better. So it'll be better if you do something like that. Unless you're really good at remembering that kind of stuff, then good for you. But for me, I think I should have written it down. And that's with all three of them. They do the footnotes in all three of them. The second book still, of course, has Rachel and Nick in it, but I like the way that he wrote these, because she's no longer, I don't feel like they're the main, they still are main characters, but this one has Kitty Pong in it, who is in the other book, but she's like barely in it, and then she becomes one of the main characters in this book. And I just think it's interesting that he continues going through this, but he still gives attention to other characters that once didn't seem as important, now they're super important, and how it all ties together with the original characters. I like that a lot. In this book, Kitty Pong is in it. We learn more about her. We learn about her life and what she's doing, and then we also learn about Rachel. Rachel meets a character that's very important that I can't say anything about because it would spoil the first book, but she finds out some things about a certain character that's very important to her in her life, and so that's also very important in here, the new characters that are introduced that weren't in the first one. Then, lastly, the last one. In this third book, the grandmother of Nick Young becomes very important, and we learn a lot more backstory on her. And she's in the other books as well, just not as much as this book by far. And she is important because she's Eleanor's mother-in-law, and Eleanor has worked her entire life to make her son, Nick, be seen in a good light and positive light and as the best grandson possible for Suyi. And this is important because she wants to make sure that, Eleanor wants to make sure that the family stays in the right light financially, because wealth-wise, since Soo-Yi's on the top, if she were to pass away, then all of her stuff, it has to go somewhere, and Eleanor wanted to make sure, oh, I'm gonna make Nick be the best possible choice for all of the stuff to get passed down to, so that it can stay in our family, and that we can continue to have this lifestyle, because the rich lifestyle, wealthy lifestyle is very important for them, very important for Eleanor to keep that. And so she's kind of worked her whole life to do that, because she knew she would never be the best for Soo-Yi. Like, she knew that she would never be seen as the best possible choice for her son, because she's really picky, and so she didn't necessarily like Eleanor really that much. And so anyways, that book really does go in a lot of detail with the grandma, and I really like how we get to find out more about her, because we really just have this one mindset that she's really old and she cares about money and cares about family and what the world sees about her family. Like, that's basically what we get of her in the first book. So it's really interesting to get more out of that character. Again, he does a really good job with his characters and how they're all in the books spread out, but then some have more of a focus than others, depending on which book you're looking at. So anyways, those are the three. Like, I know it was very brief in explaining what actually happens, but again, it's because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. I want you to have this experience that I had and just really soak into it a lot. So, the trilogy, Crazy Rich Asians. I really, really liked it. My favorite book is either the second or the third one. Maybe the third one. It's hard for me to decide because I both like them a lot. It's funny because when I first was reading it, I didn't usually, the first books are like really, really good, and then after that they're not necessarily as good as the first one. But for me, in my opinion, I like the second and third one better than the first one. But overall, trilogy overall, definitely recommend. It's worth a read if you like comedy, drama, soap opera like kind of scenarios, situations, money, and Chinese culture. If you really learn a couple new words and things like that. I just really enjoyed reading it. And so if you've already read it before, you can let me know how you feel about it, if you thought the same thing, if your favorite character is Astrid, or who your favorite character is. And if you've never read it before, again, I suggest you do if you liked any of the things that you heard me talk about. But I know we're getting kind of long, so I'll stop there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.